Do you know the difference between mold and mildew? And are they bad? Are they both bad? Today, we're going to get you these answers for these questions. I'm Jennifer Hornick, and we're joined with Bob Palestri. We are realtors serving Long Beach Island in New Jersey and Northeast Florida. Those are both areas between being close to the beach and having a humid environment where these questions about mold and mildew often come up. So we're joined today by Michael Baker of Green Check, and he is going to help us get some answers to these questions. Bob, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, Jen. Hi, Mike. So I'm up on LBI today, and our clients for over the years, we've been selling houses here for 20 years, and you know, they get nervous about mold. They think everything is mold. There's like mildew and there's mold, and I'd like to kind of clear up the difference between mildew and mold, and which is which, as Jen said. And then, how do you prevent it? I've had clients, I advise everyone, turn your main water off before you leave for the winter. And then there's Niagara Fall ice pack coming out of their top floor. And then the whole house is full of mold. So, Mike, maybe you could help us and our clients, more important, our clients, for some of these answers.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me. So, really, when people say mildew, what they're kind of saying is light surface mold, right? We're essentially, our standards don't distinguish between mildew and mold. Our professional standards don't distinguish. So, most people are talking about the kind you might see on a shower curtain, maybe a windowsill, edges of a bathtub, those kinds of things. So in building science and remediation, there's no difference. Mildew is mold, whether it's powdery white, dark and fuzzy, slimy black, right? Any of these things, they're all part of this fungal world. And they can spread, cause damage, trigger health issues. So instead of splitting hairs, what I prefer to focus on when people ask me that question, I don't want to be an alarmist, right? I don't want to just say everything's going to kill you, which is not true by any means. Molds are not all created equal, right? Some of them are pretty nasty, and some of them are very dependent on the user or the inhabitant. Mold allergies are just like food allergies, right? If you're allergic to peanuts, you can still have tree nuts. Mold's really similar. You might walk into a space where, Bob, you might walk into one of your clients' homes and start sneezing immediately. And then you might be in your family's, Adirondack camp, one year, and everybody else is like, it smells musty in here. It feels funny, right? It's been closed up all year, right? And you're like, I'm fine, right? So not everybody feels the same about everything. So, I always think of mildew when people bring it up. I always kind of just jokingly call it mold's introverted cousin, right? It's not, people think it's not as serious, and oftentimes it's not, right? If we're talking about mold and surface mold versus water damage mold, there is quite a bit of difference. So I hope that helps. I hope that's useful.
And what you said, which was interesting, is the color of it doesn't matter. Because I know I hear all the time if someone sees dots or like spots and they're black, immediately they're like, oh my gosh, this is the really bad mold. This is going to make me sick. So without proper testing, I guess you don't really know, or is that the right assumption?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, everything depends on the source, right? So if you've had water damage or you've had a leak or, storm damage, flood, Bob, you were mentioning, not wintering the house properly. You are right. If you walk in and there's water damage in a property and you're seeing black spots everywhere, you better act quick, right? Water damage is a very different thing than just mold that is popping up and not knowing where it's coming from. Water damage, it only takes a few days for some really icky stuff to start growing. And generally, once you start seeing things on the surface, really the question is what's going on behind it, right? If you're seeing black dots on the surface, or if you're just seeing what you think is mildew on the surface, um, you're wondering what's behind there, what's hidden, what don't I see? And that's when you would call a mold inspector, somebody like us, to say, hey, what am I doing? Can you run tests on this? Can you find out what it is? Can you find the source, the cause, and the spread? Um, so yeah, for sure, what you're seeing on the surface doesn't necessarily tell the story. And I also want to tell the other side of that thing. I think I can answer another question that you didn't quite answer, right? Can I clean it? Right? What can I clean and what can I clean? Well, if you're seeing a non-porous surface, right? If you've got tile, if you've got kitchen cabinets, the surface of kitchen cabinets, countertops, things like that, and you're saying, what am I seeing here? Well, a lot of those, a homeowner can clean themselves. And if you're cleaning it once, twice, three times in one of these sensitive situations, and you're going, it keeps coming back, right? It's not going away. That's another sign, right? That's another sign to say, okay, something else is going on in the home, and I need some help to identify what the cause and the source is.
Good.
So, so Mike, here on LBI, when they build new homes, everything's got to be on pilings. But there's 10,000 homes on LBI, and I'd say half of them are still like ground up, and they have crawl spaces, and most of those crawl spaces are sand or dirt. And so, how do you deal with? I mean, typically my clients, they're not crawling into they're not going in there to look. So, what should they be doing about crawl spaces?
Yeah, so my background is in insulation, in attics, crawl spaces, vapor barriers, sump pumps. That's where I came from before I started Green Check. So I love crawl spaces, right? Icky, slimy, dusty, spidery. Yeah, I'm in them all the time. I'm going to one right after this, actually. So the longer this takes, the better. Um, Crawl spaces are funky, right? You want to make sure first, do I have a bulk water solution, right? Do I have a way that if a large amount of water gets in my crawl space, it can safely get out? That's question one. That's things like sump pumps, making sure exterior drainage, landscaping are all pointing away from the home. That's step one. Step two is vapor barrier, right? I want to make sure that, the dirt or the sand itself is not pushing a huge amount of water vapor under my home. Water vapor, moisture, all these things move from more to less, and your home will always be less. Doesn't matter if you have a dehumidifier, doesn't matter if you have the perfect home, $1 million home or $10 home. Moisture always moves more to less. It will always move from the dirt into your crawl space. A vapor barrier locks that out of the crawl space, right? So that's item number two. Item number three is dehumidification, right? And this goes for homes north, south, east, west. You want to make sure that you're keeping the relative humidity of the home in a safe place. Now, in the Northeast, where we're all from, Northeast of the country, right? New York, Long Island, Boston, all these kind of climates that have cold and hot at the same time or at different times of the year. Um, a crawl space or a basement is where you're going to put your dehumidifier, right? Because that's kind of the most sensitive thing. Down here, where Jennifer and I are now in Northeast Florida, a lot of times the dehumidifier needs to be in the home, right? It needs to be either attached to the HVAC unit. It needs to be somehow ducted to circulate through the entire home to keep relative humidity in a safe space. So those are the three things, right? Control bulk water, control moisture drive into the home with vapor barriers, and then three, to control occupancy and relative humidity with dehumidification.
Mike, how did you know I had cabins in the Adirondacks? I
Just a
heard you
just
say.
a just a guess, right?
So, just an aside to this whole situation, I built a home in North Carolina in a gated community, and I told the builder all the homes there, they were very nice homes, but they all had dirt crawl spaces, not sand down there, it's dirt. So I said, I want a concrete floor poured in my crawl space. He said, well, you're the first guy that ever did this. So, but it was a smart thing to do because I never had any issue in that crawl space. So, in fact, when I sold the home, that was the most important feature to get the home sold was
That's huge.
concrete poured crawl space. So, uh, what if you've given us a lot of advice so far, what would be like your top best practices to prevent this stuff from mold? Um, just
Yep,
give us some, again, you might be repeating some, but kind
totally
of,
happy.
yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Number one, dehumidifier. Dehumidifier. It's very cheap to buy a little humidity sensor off Amazon, right? Anybody can purchase one of those, or 15, 20, $30, depending on what level you want to purchase. You could put one or two of those around your home and monitor relative humidity.
What
Um,
should the relative humidity be?
Below 50% is where I usually say, but once you hit 55 and 60%, you're really in the danger zone. Homes here in Northeast Florida, every home I go into is in the danger zone pretty much year round, right? The air conditioner cannot keep up. The air conditioner removes a lot of moisture from the air. And when you speak to HVAC guys, they all say, well, a properly tuned and properly sized and properly ducted unit should take care of moisture management in a home. And again, I love these guys, these are my friends, but I jokingly say, where's this unicorn system you're talking about? Right? I'm in homes more often than most, right? I'm testing homes more often than almost anybody, and I never see it, right? I see problems in systems. So a dehumidifier is huge in the Northeast, again, Northeast of the country, in the cold and hot climates, right? Those dual zone climates. Um, you're putting that in a basement or a crawl space, and that's going to take care of the home, right? If you're in the home, 90% of the air you're breathing is coming through your crawl space, right? That's really a scary proposition, right?
Mhm.
Warm air rises, creates high pressure at the top of the home. It's going to find anywhere to leak out at the top of the home. You suck in air from the bottom of the home. It's called the stack effect, works just like a chimney, just not as hot, right? Works exactly the same. So whatever your crawl space condition is what you're breathing.
Mm.
And whatever your basement condition is what you're breathing. Just because you don't smell the musty, moldy, disgusting stuff in your home doesn't mean it's not in there. Um, so in the Northeast, you're sticking that in the crawl space in the basement. And here in Florida, a lot of times I suggest people getting them ducted into their HVAC system. So you're pulling air from a sensitive area of the home, like a bathroom or a kitchen, and you're sticking it back into the sort of the ducting of the home so that it can distribute. That's number one, and number two. Number three would be ventilation, right? Making sure that you've got a kitchen range hood that's pulling moisture out. When you turn on that stove and you're boiling water and you're creating heat in the home, that you have that running. Bathrooms, critical that bathroom fans are vented out of the home. Have somebody go in your attic and make sure the bathroom fan is actually making it out of the roof. So
Mhm.
many times I go in homes, that bath fan is just sitting in the attic, blowing at the roof deck, and you got a huge patch of mold all the time. Brand new homes, right? I inspect more new homes than old homes at this point. My first 10 years of my career was all retrofit, all 20, 50, and 100-year-old homes. And now I'm seeing a lot of new homes where people are calling me for 10-month inspections on new homes. Constant failure. Make sure that those are functioning. Fix leaks immediately, right? If you notice a slow leak or a little drip under your kitchen sink, get it cleaned up, right? Those things, they create mold on the back of those boards that you can't see, underneath those boards that you can't look under. That's that sneaky stuff that is sitting in the home that is just nasty. And one person in the home is complaining all the time, I'm sneezing all the time, I'm always sick, and the other person thinks they're insane, right? I'm more a marriage counselor than a mold inspector half the time, right? One person thinks the other one's absolutely out of their mind. Why are you always sneezing? Why are you trying all these hippie remedies? Why are you telling me we need another inspection? Why are you telling me something's not right? It's because I don't feel good, right? And a lot of times that's what's going on. It's hidden mold that exacerbates what's going on in people's health. And number five, right? We talked about sealing crawl spaces, right? Making sure that those are sealed off. That's a big thing. But you also in hot climates, you want to be insulating cold surfaces, right? Ducts are not nearly insulated enough in our climate zone here in Northeast Florida. They put roughly R6 or R9 around the outside of ducts, and not to get too technical, but R is just insulation value. And to give a very, very brief understanding of what that means, your freezer is roughly 0 degrees, right? It's freezing. Your house is, let's call it 70 degree differential between the freezer and the house. And you've got R20 on the freezer. And your ducks are trying to move 55-degree air through 140-degree attic, and they've got R6. There's not nearly enough insulation in homes. We've created slightly higher performance homes, but as a building community in this country, we haven't followed through with making sure that building science is agreeing with the changes that we're making. And that's one of the big ones that's failing in every single home. And it's a prevention step people can do, especially if you're going to be in your home for more than 5 or 10 years. It's a prevention step that's worth doing. It pays for itself in energy efficiency and air quality.
Excellent. Well, I didn't have any more questions. I am extremely grateful for your time. And you gave us some really great tips that I hope our clients will be able to, act upon. And if anyone has any other questions, I will be posting Michael's contact info under the video. So feel free to reach out to him with any other questions you have.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you both having me.
Okay.
Great to meet you.
Thanks, Mike.